This is Steve Colano, and this is Confidential Remarks. Modern marketing relies on a strategy of relentless accumulation. Brands constantly stack more words, more numbers, and more promises on top of each other, burying everything in a dense layer of noise. The instinct driving this behavior is a psychological trap. When a company feels it needs to fight for attention, it begins aggressively piling up data points and throwing out bold superlatives to prove its overall value in the marketplace. But listing a dozen reasons why an audience should choose you actually communicates the complete and total opposite of authority. It positions the brand as an insecure participant who is actively and desperately begging for the viewer's approval. For an ultra-premium Apex entity, trying to outshout the competition is a critical error. Adding volume destroys prestige. It traps the brand in a defensive posture, constantly fighting a war it never needed to enter. To successfully break out of that trap, we use a counterintuitive framework known as quiet dominance. True authority at the highest level of a market isn't commanded by projecting the loudest voice. It is commanded by the negative space left behind when a brand stops feeling the need to explain itself. The tone entirely shifts. We move away from messaging as an open invitation. Instead, the message serves as the definitive, immovable conclusion. Ultimate power is signaled by having the capacity to end a search. When you are the absolute answer, all further persuasion is unnecessary. Applying this framework across a complex corporate ecosystem requires strict discipline. Messaging strategies must be contained to specific, heavily regulated zones. A brand has several open access areas. These include the main website, agent recruiting pages, and general educational content. These outward-facing spaces require absolute clarity. Deploying a quiet, authoritative posture here registers as a failure to communicate with an audience trying to gather basic information. This diagram illustrates exactly how those jurisdictions are separated. On the wide, porous outer rings, you have those open access zones. But isolated directly in the center is a highly restricted area we call the final closing. While the outer rings maintain high communication flow, the final closing is an entirely different environment. It is the only place in the architecture where a dominant, finished posture is legally permitted, acting as a solid, unmoving object. If you leak this posture into the core brand, it reads as arrogance. It maintains potency precisely because it's kept under strict geographical containment. To craft that message within the final closing, we rely on a specific operational mechanism, the subtraction process. Looking at this animated diagram of standard corporate text, the first phase of removal begins. We erase every claim and statistical proof. By letting those numbers dissolve away, we eliminate the brand's need for external validation. In the second phase, superlatives and comparative words are deleted entirely. We remove any language suggesting the brand is still competing with rivals. Finally, we strip out all self-congratulatory language. The corporate ego is completely erased, leaving only a massive amount of stark, clean negative space around a single focal point. What replaces the noise is known as removal language. The focus shifts entirely to concepts like fewer conversations or selection over volume. By systematically stripping away those persuasive elements, you create a deliberate vacuum. The brand immediately fills that empty space with unshakable institutional certainty. The output of that subtraction process is a message that is incredibly clean, strictly controlled, and entirely finished. This layout shows the precise visual execution. The typography is capitalized, completely unstylized, and stripped of any decoration. There is a critical strategic necessity to the pause that follows. You have to let the statement sit in the negative space. You do not follow it up with an immediate explanation. Presenting the text in such a clean, unadorned manner forces the audience to stop reading and actually absorb the absolute weight of the brand's finality. In high-stakes branding, dominance reveals itself as an absence rather than an act of noise. When you successfully remove the urge to persuade, the viewer's perception pivots. They stop sensing the subtle insecurity of a sales pitch and begin to feel profound institutional certainty. Executed correctly, this framework doesn't ask the client to consider an option. It proves the brand is the undeniable final choice, the last call they will ever need to make. This has been Confidential Remarks.